Parasite clan. Harvest warpstone. Yes, most precipitous of masters. And flay yourself, your impertinence. Or it will be done, your worship.
A foolish thought. To claim to know all the Skaven clans that are in existence would be an idea something only a fool would entertain. There are too many, and they are constantly being disbanded or wiped out, and then forming again under different banners, like an endless and turbulent cycle of death. Clan Pestilence, Clan Scryer, Clan Eshin, Clan Mulder. These are the major Skaven clans that are most known. Even then, not many people know about the existence of the endlessly hungry horde of rat men living under our homes, our cities. Ignorance that one day will be paid with a heavy price. These are not the major clans. These are the rest, and they are endless. Deep beneath the Underempire's mouldering vaults, Clan Septik festers like a gangrenous wound made flesh. They are not an independent warlord clan, but a thrall that bound itself to Clan Pestilence during the First Skaven Civil War, swearing to serve them as an ally. They consider themselves as the right-hand claw of the plague priests they so faithfully serve. Zealotry defines them. Septic monks chant that every bubo is a benediction, every hack and cough a hymn. Their warriors dress in off-white robes precisely so that blotches of pus, rust and filth show more vividly, the better to horrify their foes and one another. Armor and blades are deliberately corroded. The more flaking iron and orange rot a weapon bears, the holier it is deemed amongst them. Rank-and-file plague monks wrap diseased bandages around weeping sores, while banners display a jagged green diseased claw, Septik's clan mark of sanctified infection. At the head of their formations march the plague vermin, elite storm vermin whose halberd heads are nothing but pitted rust. Yet, by some foul miracle, never chip or turn dull. Their most notorious champion is Plague Priest Blightscab, commander of Blightscab's Plague Pack, reputedly the foulest assembly of vermin in the clan. Uncharacteristically of the Skaven, he leads from the front, so he can splash contagion across enemies with every swing of his blighted weapon. Septik's fanatics are thrown into wars as expendable shock troops. Temple sieges in Lustria, tunnel crusades in the old world rage on dwarf holds. Yet, improbably, they keep surviving. Other Skaven whisper that the horned rat must favor them, for Septik scuttles out of each bloodbath, still numerous enough to chant, cough, and charge again. In battle, their tactics are simple, but terrible. Plague monks sprint ahead, smashing glass globes of phlegm-thick rot. Clouds of flies roll over defenders. Plague vermin then drive the wedge home with rusted halberds. Afterwards, survivors sift the corpses for intact organs, ripe with flesh-cultured pox. A grisly harvest for the next assault. They neither ransom captives nor take slaves. Any living foe is merely an incubator. Thus, Clan Septik persists, a mobile plague front that the major Clan Pestilence unleashes wherever contagion is deemed too precious to risk its own elite. Whether they truly enjoy divine favor or are simply too diseased to die, the disgustingly resilient Clan Septik remains a matter for grey seers to debate, preferably from a very safe distance. Clan Rictus clawed its way from obscurity during the time of woes, around the year 1800 of the imperial calendar. Warlord Cratch Doomcraw, then a mere chieftain, seized a cache of raw warpstone that plummeted into the Painspike ravines. For months without end, tormented slaves forged the shards into blades, helmet, and coin, letting Cratch bribe storm vermin elites away from rival clans and to his service. This warlord is rumored to bathe injured storm vermin in molten pitch to harden their courage, making him a feared character within and without Clan Rictus. By the year 1903 of the imperial calendar, Doomclaw held Crookback Mountain and levied passage tithes on every caravan slinking their way into the Darklands. And then they also charged twice as much if they ever wished to leave. Those who pay survive. Those who refuse adorn the cliff path as grisly warnings for the next adventurous travelers. The Crookback Mountain looms over a warren of mushroom-choked caves where night goblin tribes multiply without count, and Clan Rictus harvests that teeming scum as though it were a crop. Each dusk, black-armored storm vermin pour from hidden sally ports, corralling shrieking greenskins into the pit mouths until the slave pens are full. The endless influx fuels the forges, deep mines, and breeding sepulchres of Clan Rictus, swelling its coffers with such a glut of warp tokens that Doomclaw's counting scribes now boast their ledgers rival those of the mighty Clan Moors itself. Predictably, the two deadly clans circle one another like doom pit fighters. Spies creep, assassins barter for venom, and every council convocation hums with the question of which claw will strike next. As many times these two clans have fought each other for dominion. When it comes to waging war, Clan Rictus uses a three-wave crush method. First, they send out expendable slaves to surge forward, to choke trenches and soak arrow fire. Then, clan rats stream in behind to probe for weaknesses. And finally, the black-armored storm vermin columns advance in locked shields, their halberds jutting out like a living fence of iron fangs. During a siege, the warlords invoke Crookback tolls, demanding surrender within 13 turns of the hourglass. If defenders stall, trebuchets hurl bronze cages of still screaming captives, each cage crammed with plague rats that burst against the parapets in a spray of claws and contagion. A horrible sight to behold by any defender, and a tactic that has broken many to surrender or flee against the growing horrors that Clan Rictus is capable of unleashing. Clan Mange is a minor warlord clan, distinguished at a glance by its piebald, half-brown, half-whitened fur, and by a puzzling reputation for loyalty. So long as the purse is full, of course. Their warbands act as mercenaries across the Underempire, pledging service contract by contract, and then, when the coin or warpstone runs out, moving on without a backward glance. To cultivate the image of professional sellswords, they wear surprisingly well-kept green tunics and serviceable armor, and they record every bargain on hide scrolls overseen by Chieftain Cratch Gristleclaw, the current broker of the clan's fortunes. It is said that after a chieftain accidentally trod on Gristleclaw's tail, Gristleclaw retaliated by strangling him with his own tail. Subsequently, he seized the chieftain's banner and sought new loyalties, which lie firmly with the highest bidder. Because their livelihood depends on being rehired, Mange warriors rarely break a contract mid-campaign, Instead, they strap small shields to their backs, which serves as protection against the inevitable betrayal once terms expire. Deep under the choking humidity of lustrous gloom, Clan Spittel gnaws out a precarious empire of tunnels and sunken ziggurats. Their entire identity is forged around the hatred of the cold-blooded lizard men, whose temple cities tower above their extensive lairs. To the rat men of Clan Spittel, every scale is a trophy, every spawning pool a resource ripe for desecration. Warbands stalk the root-choked dark, blowpipes tipped with venom milked from jungle asps, while front-rank storm vermin carry cuirasses stitched from flayed reptilian skin or the cured hides of slain Saurus warriors, believing the stolen scale confers both protection and a cruel mockery of their foe. Their lair, which is half flooded and half fuming with jungle fungus, houses pits where captured cold ones and horned jungle beasts are broken for war. Although records of grand campaigns are scarce, the Skaven underroots still can show evidence of Clan Spittel's brief sacking of the lesser spawning compound Teskakel, and of a retaliatory counter-assault in which enraged temple guards drove the rats back into the underground, leaving only scale-strewn armor and rotting effigies in their wake. Yet each setback fuels Spittel's fervor. Every defeated warlord is skinned, his pelt tanned alongside the trophies of reptilian victims, as a reminder that the clan's true creed is basically scale or be scaled. Clan Gritus splintered directly from Clan Moors after Warlord Vrimic's death, its revolt quietly supported by Clan Rictus. Now a warlord clan in its own right, Gritus scours the Underempire for weaker nests, slaughtering or enslaving them and amassing throngs of Skaven slaves and stolen war beasts for them. Still bitter at the generations they spent on the Clan War's cruel lash, they harbour a rare vendetta, an un-Skaven-like fixation on payback that shapes every raid they launch. Rather than mine warpstone or raid man-thing cities, they prey on their own kind, scouring the Underempire for small or weakened clans to absorb, then falling upon them in a single brutal coup. Leaders are garroted, breeding organisms dragged off in chains, and the rank and file offered a stark choice: join their ranks or become meat in the clan's fighting pits. Each conquest swells the cannibal collectors, as Gracius acidly nicknamed them, with fresh slaves and stockpiles of seized arms, all catalogued beneath the glare of their warlord Ricket One-Eye. Their most infamous feats include the midnight betrayal of Clan Scrabble, whose victory feast turned into a massacre when the allies of Clan Gritus struck. Then the calculated absorption of the now decimated Clan Gritek, whose miners now work until dead in the hot forges of Clan Gritus, and the clandestine commission of a monstrous hellbeast of Seep Gore from Clan Molder, an unhinged living siege engine that the warlord intends to unleash on Clan Moors when the hour of reckoning comes. Every campaign feeds two hungers: immediate loot and the long-nurtured dream of eclipsing Quickhead Taker's house once and for all. Thus, while other Skaven see Clan Gritus as little more than scavengers and fancy stolen mail, many also keep a wary eye on the shadows, for they know the clan values nothing: alliances, truces, even kin, above the next bite of power chewed from a rival's still twitching corpse. Deep in the monster-choked Darklands, Clan Krizzor begins as a nondescript burrow of scavengers, until a grisly stroke of genius changed its fate. Skaven slaves drenched in pig's blood happened to prove irresistible bait for every cave horror and chaos-twisted brute that prowled the wastes. With trap pits brimming, Clan Krizzor hurries the snarling catchers north, bartering them to the major clan Molder and winning the Fleshmaster's patronage. Under this pact, Clan Krizzor is able to cultivate its own cadre of packmasters, so the bulk of the warp token income can be ploughed back into Clan Molder's latest abominations rather than spent hiring handlers. As a result of many traps and systems for catching beasts the clan has developed, cages of Razagors, trollwhelps, cave squeaks, and nameless multi-limbed nightmares are all stitched into service, their will broken. Clan Krizzor's Skaven warriors flaunt that pride. Tunics and banners are patchworks of cured trollhide, tanned Razagor leather and scale-flecked pelts. Each swatch is a boast of some beast broken to the whip. Beneath the ochre badlands, the diggers of Clan Gnaw extend labyrinthine tunnels, each new shaft a potential throat to choke a surface settlement. Clan Gnaw regards every living being above as future meat. Packmasters draped in tattered wyvern scale and squigskin cloaks conduct nightly hunts, smearing expendable slaves in swine blood and driving them into darkness to draw out Razagors, cave squigs or worse. Once the bait shrieks, iron nets drop, soporific gas hisses, and the beast is chained for the long march north, where they will be tamed using all sorts of questionable but proven methods. Wagons creak through these passages even now, transporting caged horrors toward Hell Pit in exchange for warpstone, crude firearms, and spiked armor supplied mostly by Clan Molder. The tactics of Clan Gnaw rely on constant motion. Burrow teams gnaw beneath fortress walls, collapsing parapets at the chosen hour. Blowpipe caterers lurk in crevices, spitting scorpion venom into passing patrols. Echo horns imitate squig howls, herding orc warbands towards spike-lined ravines. The clan's annals recall past triumphs with savage pride. In the year 2378 of the Imperial calendar, the Morgutter Raid, as they later named themselves, collapsed Meatstealer Hold, hurling massive ogres into flame-lit pits as they corralled the surviving hulking beasts. But the fall of Miragliano in the year 2471 remains their masterstroke. Based on loose recollections of scrapped writings of the event, a brief retelling can be made. Miragliano's high carnival had reached its dizzying crescendo beneath a noon sun that glinted from gilt masks. Nobles drifted across the plaza, carefree behind perfumed dominoes, while jugglers capered atop the fountains and gondoliers serenaded the lagoon. Then the flagstones groaned. A puff of dry sewer dust hissed upward through a newborn crack. Before startled guards could bark a command, the entire plaza sagged, slabs tilting like cards in a collapsing house. Pavement ruptured with a thunderclap, and columnar arcades slipped into a yawning chasm. Noble women in peacock feathers scrabbled for purchase, nails squealing on falling stone, their screams snatched away by the rising stink of mold and warp powder. Out of that sulphurous throat surged the killers. Clan rats in furs, eyes gleaming red through dust. followed by hulking packmasters, lashing caged giant rats driven half mad by the days of darkness and hunger. Halberd-scythed silk and bone alike, their perfume turned to the metallic tang of blood. When the dust finally settled and the last echo died, nothing remained of the plaza but a jagged crater veined with tunnel entrances, each one slick with claw prints and already sealing shut as Clan Gnaw vanished back into the earth, leaving Miragliano to count all the people that disappeared on that day, most likely dragged to the hell beneath. Clan Mordkin stands apart from its fellow warlord clans through a morbid devotion to death that borders on worship. Centuries ago, its warriors helped besiege Nagasazar, and legend says that they were the very last Skaven to quit Cripple Peak, locking shields against the great necromancer's skeletal hordes, while the rest of the Skaven Underempire scuttled to safety. That long struggle scarred them in flesh and mind. To this day, they bleach patches of their fur and lash enemy bones across their armor to mimic the walking dead they once fought, believing the sight alone will unnerve rivals and curry favor with the horned rat. Their chieftains wear helm masks carved from giant rat or even rat ogre skulls, and rank-and-file clan rats brandish daggers whittled from thigh bones. Their priests insist that gnawing the remains of slain prophets grants insight, so troublesome grey seers exiled to a Mordkin burrow rarely survive a season within their clan, as they are often devoured by the rat men to gnaw at their bones. Mordkin wages war with ruthless efficiency, seizing weaker warrens and devouring captives rather than enslaving them. During the terrible event known as the Black Death in the year 1111 of the Imperial calendar, they held a coveted seat on the Council of 13, under the bleached fur warlord Necrot the Bone Lord. They contested Sylvania's warpstone seams with the necromancer Van Hal, suffering grievous casualties, yet growing ever more fixated on bones and the topic of death. Their banners today are fashioned from gnawed thigh bones bound into the horned rat's rune, and their storm vermin elites clatter like ossuaries when they march. Clan Festa rots in the shadows of its lost greatness. Once a power during the Black Plague of the year 1111 of the Imperial calendar, the clan held a coveted seat on the Council of 13 under Grey Lord Mangler Baneburrow, and could field endless clan rat legions thanks to the exceptionally fertile breeders they had. From their stronghold in ruined Kanakazgal, they fought dwarfs emboldened by the slaying of the dragon Grog, and even hurled themselves into Sylvania, believing clan pestilence diseases could rot the undead armies of Van Hal. They trusted clan pestilence as their powerful and reliable allies, but that gamble ended in catastrophe as over-reliance on the major clan doomed them. The disease known as the Brood Blight struck their own breed as sterile. Clan pestilence helped, or only pretended to help, only long enough to study the affliction, then discarded the rat men of Clan Festa like a pustule lanced and drained. Defeated, Festa lost its council seat to pestilence deacon Vrask Bilebroth, and was reduced to a thrall within the pestilent brotherhood, its warriors so diseased that flesh sloughs from their bones as they march. Today, the clan squats amid the damp vaults of Karaknal, clinging to memories while the calamity of brood blight renders their breeders infertile. Many other clans have already considered Clan Festa to be destined for extinction. Motivated by raw survival and a half-mad yearning to reclaim honor, Clan Festa now staggers on, a walking infection seeking either miraculous rebirth or a suitably apocalyptic grave. From the reeking cauldrons of the pestilent brotherhood rises Clan Mordibus, a thrall clan to Clan Pestilence, and one that treats contagion as both holy calling and hard currency. Unlike Clan Pestilence, Clan Mordibus happily hawks plaguecraft to any Underempire tyrant who can meet their price. Many are the warlords that have hired the dark services of this clan to spread disease and virulence on a rival clan's breeding pits and favourite tunnels. Their banners, canvas boiled in cauldrons of pus until the cloth blooms with boil shapes, mirror their creed. Corruption first, aesthetics later. At the head of the clan stands Arch-Pontifex Sitch, a warlord whose power buys him a seat on the Council of 13. He funnels tithe money straight into Hell Pit, purchasing bespoke war beasts, great pox rats, plague-glazed rat ogres, and swarms of pathogen-ridden vermin, to accompany his chanting plague monks. Mordibus's ledger of invasion across the old world is infamous in the Underempire. They brewed foaming lung rot, a froth-drowned fever that ravaged Wissenland and that had hundreds of people die as a consequence, and the deadly black belly fever, which burst the guts of grim Duraz's miners before the dwarfs could even lift a pick. In the year 2512 of the Imperial calendar, Arch-Pontifex Sitch ordered a war of contamination against the Grey Mountain Holds, dispatching Chieftain Blistrock's Blight to infect Karak Norn, purely to justify fresh funding from the Council of 13. Their greed and their willingness to rent out plague on demand has begun to worry the plague lords of Pestilence. Some whisper that Mordibus's vault of warp tokens gleam too brightly for a clan that claims to love decay. Today the clan straddles a knife's edge, too useful to purge, too avaricious to fully trust. Their priests mutter that a new master plague, one grand enough to humble Pestilence itself, is ripening in the vats beneath Sitch's sanctum. Whether that brew ushers in untold power or a backlash from their jealous betters is the gamble at the rotten heart of Clan Mordibus's mercenary faith. Once hailed as the worm lords of the Hive, Clan Verms is now little more than a leprous footnote in Skavendom that even weaker clans mock. Their ancestral home, the Hive, lies beneath Skavenblight, where oily tunnels once pulsed with the hiss of breeding pits crammed full of gargantuan beetles, corpse maggots, and the scorpion-like death walkers they sold as war beasts when they were a powerful clan. In their golden age, the clan's trade was making and then selling worm oil, a viscous fuel that lit the Underempire's lanterns, useful for all inhabitants of the darkest places of the Underempire. Plus, their talent for eradicating flea plagues and getting rid of other dangerous beasts that lurked in the darkest places of the Underempire earned their warlord Blight Tenscratch a seat on the Council of 13. But everything curdled during the tumultuous times of the Black Plague in the year 1111 of the Imperial calendar, where Clan Verms helped Clan Pestilence spread disease by selling and distributing sacks of infected fleas. But a mutant strain rebounded into Skavenblight itself, causing unnecessary and excessive death, and prompting the Council to order a brutal cull of the Hive and Clan Verms. Desperate, Warlord Tenscratch schemed with Poxmaster Puscab Foulfur of Clan Pestilence to overthrow Arch-Plague Lord Nurglich from his seat at the council. All was going well until Puscab betrayed Clan Verms' warlord at the most crucial moment and seized his own council seat. For the first time, Clan Pestilence had a second seat in the Council of 13. When warpstone lanterns manufactured by Clan Scryer rendered wormoil obsolete and Clan Moulder usurped the monster breeding niche for themselves, Clan Verms plummeted from grace, having no competitive advantage to exploit. Today, the survivors and members of Clan Verms skulk in flea-ridden gutters, longing for the power and influence they once had. Clan Carrion roams the war-scarred old world and the underground like vultures in fur, shunning fixed lairs in favor of a nomad's life, spent shadowing armies and sieges. When the last arrow stills and the air reeks of cooling gore, their packs erupt from burrow mouths, shuffling beneath patchwork banners stitched from every rag, tarp, and battlefield standard they can filch. Nothing escapes their claws. Splintered shields become roof slats for tunnel huts. Officers' rings are melted into warp token slugs, and surplus meat, whether from a dead horse, man, or orc, is stripped for rations or bait. They even daub their choicest loot in garish dyes. Scryer pistols, cages of fattened giant rats, so a quick glance on the battlefield can reclaim what slips from grasp amid the debris. A habit born of knowing that they only own what they physically clutch for themselves. Clan Carrion's warriors look as varied and diverse as their spoils. Knife belts bristle across piecemeal breastplates. Helmets seldom match, and every second shield bears a different crest hacked from some fallen foe. Their creed, finders keepers, has bred a culture of endemic pickpocketing, even within the clan, and the average scavenger tucks half a dozen spare blades into any free fold or cloth. Yet this ragtag host survives where grander warlords perish, for battle ever rages somewhere, and where battle rages, salvaging quickly follows. During the Skaven sack of Tyria, the clan's prowling detachments helped sever city-state supply lines, darting in the larger hosts to loot Miragliano's docks and Tabaro's ruined markets before torch smoke ever cleared. Such feat earned no glory for them within the Council of 13, but they swelled Clan Carrion's own knife-stuffed coffers and reinforced a lesson every clan rat learns at birth. Triumph belongs not to the boldest killer, but to the rat quick enough to strip the corpse. Born in the long shadow of Clan Eshin, Clan Treecherik functions as its patron's disposable dagger. Murderous, duplicitous, and so steeped in sudden killing that even other Skaven recoil when they are aware of their presence. Life in their burrows is an unending fight for survival. It is common practice for every warrior to strap a shield to his back to foil the inevitable knife from a comrade. And tunics are dyed the red hue of congealed Skaven blood, so to not alert other Skaven or the enemy that they are wounded, hiding their weaknesses. The clan's leadership churns faster than a gnawing wheel. Any chieftain who lasts a week is considered a veteran, which means only the quickest and most suspicious rats endure long enough to take their talents abroad. This brutal culling has side effects Eshin finds useful. The rat men of Clan Treecherik move silently, strike from shadows without warning, and thanks to constant vigilance against their own kin, they can spot ambushes others miss. Their most infamous claw pack, the Scurry Stabbers, is said to have slain more Treecherik brethren than external enemies or surface dwellers. Yet its current leader, Gristle Twitslice, still dreams of impressing Eshin's Night Lords before inevitably putting a dagger in their spines. Extended engagements with Treecherik forces resemble a rolling civil war. Blades flash outward at the foe and inward to settle grudges in the same heartbeat, leaving only the hardest survivors to skulk off into the dark. Hidden deep in the World's Edge Mountains, Clan Ferrik beats an iron heartbeat beneath Carrick's stolen forges. The clan's masked overlord, always encased in a snarling helm of black steel, has pried those smelteries from grudging dwarfs and now churns out more blades and breastplates than any Skaven rival. No one can say whether the steel-masked warlord is one immortal tyrant or a succession of impostors, for his stature and voice appear to change every few seasons, yet the mask and the terror it inspires remains constant. Armoured storm vermin march at his word in near-dwarf discipline, their own faceplates sculpted in miniature mimicry of their master, while legions of Skaven slaves and captured dwarf smiths labour without pause in sulphurous foundries. Clan Ferrik's economy is strong, as they supply pikes and razor saws to any warlord who pays, but their richest vein of power lies in an exclusive claw pact with Clan Scryer, trading rivers of freshly smelted steel for warp tech wonders that keep rival clans at bay. Thus, every raid Clan Ferrik launches serves a dual purpose: to capture fresh slaves for the hot furnaces, and a show of force to remind the Underempire that, while others plot in the dark, it is Ferrik's hammers that arm the plots. Reborn in shadow, Clan Kreepus is the silent blade of Clan Eshin, an entire thrall clan whose identity revolves around the tail knife that won their freedom. Generations ago, they were pit slaves under a brutal subfaction, Clan Grick. Clan Eshin, sensing useful desperation, made a deal with Clan Kreepus. They promised aid in exchange for their loyal servitude. Determining that service was way better than slavery, the shackled rats of Clan Kreepus accepted the deal. Clan Eshin then smuggled poisoned daggers into the pens of Gnaw Pit. Unable to wield them with bound paws, the captives lashed the blades to their prehensile tails and slaughtered their taskmasters in a one-night revolt, pledging everlasting service to the Night Lords who had armed them. Ever since, Clan Kreepus assassins trained from kithood to strike with tail, claw and silence. Even their gutter runners fight mask-faced, believing a Kreepus's true visage must never be seen by a living foe. They move as adjuncts to Eshin kill teams, eliminating sentries, sabotaging gates, or allowing themselves to be captured so they can butcher jailers from within. Notable is the Talabheim jailbreak in the year 2502 of the Imperial calendar, when a 6-rat cell feigned arrest, skinned lockpicks from beneath their own flesh, and freed a grey seer without raising the alarm until dawn's toll. Though utterly loyal in public, they harbour a quiet envy of their mentors, and Night Lord Snitch keeps a close watch. The clan's last chieftain to proclaim himself the Night Master of Tree Shadows was found with twin daggers embedded in his eyes, an Eshin warning against over-ambition. Still, Clan Kreepus endures, tiptoeing beneath the greater clan silhouette, their tails forever coiled for the next silent liberation or the next betrayal ordered from on high. Clan Volkn squats in fortress warrens hewn into the incandescent bowels of Fire Mountain, its passageways lit by rivers of magma and the sputtering jets of warp fire forges. Every clan rat is seared with a hot iron the moment it squeals into life. It is a rite that brands allegiance and hardens skin for the burns sure to come. Soon after, their elders of the clan drench the new-grown fur in vivid crimson dye, so the whole clan resembles living embers drifting through the dark. Warriors favor razor-edged obsidian hacked from the volcano's throat, Storm vermin and warlords alike inlay these glassy blades and breastplates with rune sigils that pulse a smouldering red, as though the stone itself remembers the flame it once contained. At their head lords the so-called Molten Warlord, whose name is Moltskin Searflesh, his scarred armor half fused to his body after surviving a deluge of molten metal. He owes allegiance to none, and hires out Volkn fire-mad regiments to the richest bidder, who is most often Clan Scryer, and whose coffers help keep the furnaces stoked and the warp fire throwers supplied. Obsessed with flame in all its guises, Clan Volkn troops train to advance through smoke and cinders, their soot-blackened muzzles chanting pyre litanies, while suicide packs race ahead, clay pot of incendiary paste strapped to their backs. Their banners blaze with erupting volcanoes and rivers of lava, warning that wherever Volkn fights, cities do not merely fall, they burn. Walls sagging like candle wax and streets hissing beneath a rain of liquid rock. Even allies keep a nervous distance. The warlock engineers of Scryer admire Volkn's furnace discipline, yet complain that any joint siege risks being reduced to cinders before plunder can be claimed, as it has happened on more than one occasion. For Clan Volkn, that is a risk worth courting. Gold and warp tokens are welcome, but the true payment is the roar of a city's timbers catching fire and the ecstatic squeal of red-furred storm vermin dancing maniacally amid the sparks. So, the parchment dries and the quills fall silent. Yet beneath our trembling feet, the Underempire still seethes. Clan Rictus drills black-furred legions, Clan Gnaw hauls fresh-chained horrors to help it, and Clan Fester, Septik, Volkn, Mange, Spittel, Gritus, Krizzor, Verms, Carrion, Treecherik, Ferrik, Kreepus, each brood we have named and feared, they skitter on with their own hungers, feuds, and plagues. No crown unravels faster than a Skaven oath, no abyss yawns wider than their collective spite, and tomorrow's ruin will be authored not by one single mighty warlord, but by a million squabbling claws, each convinced the horned rats squeak solely for them. Which clan would you recruit if you had to lead a Skaven warband? Which one do you think is the most terrifying? Let us know in the comments below, and we thank you for watching this episode with us. We hope to see you in the next one.
Who knows vile bloody sores? Heal our wounds, O great Blade Lord. We are your mortal, pathetic servants. No mercy for the weak! Cut them to pieces! To the unfaithful I bring holy plagues ripe with enlightenment. To the devout, the blessing of immortality through the kiss of sacred rot. And to you flesh-crafted puppets of our failing Imperium, I bring the holiest gift of all, silence.